Bhagavad Gita 10.7 Etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo vetti tattvataha so avikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshayah. Krishna is speaking. In this verse, he's giving more or less a summary of what he has spoken earlier. And in that summary of what this chapter has been, Etam, all this, vibhutim yogam cha, this knowledge of the greatness of Krishna, vibhuti, yoga is used here in the sense of mystic power. Mama yoga tutaha. One who understands this in truth. So avikalpena yogena, that person will practice yoga avikalpa. So in this verse we have the word yoga used twice, and the two meanings are quite different. First refers to the revelation of Krishna, of his magnificence, and the second is the connection expressed, the connection established by us through our practice. So, avikalpena yogena, without any vikalpa, without any alternative, means wholeheartedly, undistractedly, yujyate, such a person will become engaged in yoga. Na atra samshayah, of this there is no doubt. This verse comes just before the four verses 10.8 to 11, which are called the Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita. And in a sense, this verse summarizes what has been spoken earlier, where the next verse will, this verse summarizes what has been spoken in this chapter, whereas the next four verses will summarize what was spoken essentially in the whole Gita. And Krishna has in the same chapter earlier talked about the result of knowing about him, or at least knowing some aspect about him. He has said in 10.3, यो मामजमनादिं च वेत्ति लोकमहेश्वरः असम्मूढः समर्थेषु सर्वपापैः pramuchyate. He said, Yo mam ajam anadim cha, one who understands him to be unborn and imperishable, unborn and beginningless rather, and one who understands him to be the Lord of all people, the Loka Maheshwara. Such a person is free from doubt. Asamudha samartyeshu. Such a person among those who are mortals, who are bound to die, sarvapapai pramuchyate. That person becomes free from all sins. And the first result of knowing Krishna, Krishna's transcendence, is that one becomes free from sins. This 10.3 talks about knowing Krishna's transcendental controllership. Whereas 10.7 talks about knowing Krishna further, knowing his vibhuti and yoga, knowing his greatness and how he relates with the world, and how he reveals his glory in this world, yoga. So, and he says the result of knowing this is something further. It is not just liberation from sin, it is absorption in Krishna. And absorption in Krishna is the surest guarantee for liberation from this world and liberation in Krishna. Because if you're absorbed in Krishna, we will remember him during this life. Naturally, with that practice, we will remember him at the time of death. And as he has stated in 8.56 earlier, that those who remember him at the time of death will attain him. So here, Krishna says that etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo vetti tattvataha. Tattvataha is truly. Krishna uses the word tattvataha several times, most famously in 4.9, again about knowing himself, janma karma che me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham panarjanma naiti mameti. So Arjuna, there also Krishna says, if we know him in truth tattvataha, then we will attain him. Krishna will also use the word Tatvata later in 18.55. Bhaktyama vijanati yavanyas tatvatah tomam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. In fact, there in 18.55, Krishna uses the word Tattvataha and Tattvato twice. So, those who know him in truth, they they know. Actually, by devotion, we can know him in truth, and by knowing him in truth, thus, one can attain the transcendental world. So, here, it's talked about knowing Krishna in truth, but whereas earlier in 4.9 it was talked about knowing his Janma and Karma, here it is talking about knowing about his Vibhuti and Yoga. The term Vibhuti is the eponym for this chapter. The whole chapter is called as Vibhuti Yoga, and specifically Krishna's Vibhutis will be asked about by Arjuna a few verses later, around 10 verses later, and Krishna will reply by giving a long list of Vibhutis that occupies majority of the chapter from text 20 to text 38. Now here, Vibhuti essentially means the way it is used in this chapter. It's not just greatness, the greatness that is manifested in this world. And yoga refers to the divine self-revelation. When we say that we have to practice yoga, it means we have to connect ourselves with Krishna. It is not that Krishna is sitting relaxed in his own abode while we are struggling to connect with him. No, Krishna also wants us to connect with him. He's eager. In fact, he's more eager that we connect with him than we are eager enough to connect with him. And out of his eagerness that we connect with him, he also reveals himself. And that self-revelation, that mystical, endearing, attractive self-revelation of Krishna is also called as yoga. So, but we understand how it is that Krishna has manifested in this world, we understand his glory thus, then Tataha Vitti, when we know this, then we'll understand that there's nothing other than Krishna that we should devote ourselves to. So avikalpena yogena vijjate natra samshayah. When we understand that Krishna is the essential principle of everything attractive, as we were told at the end of this chapter in 10.41, that all attractive things get their attractiveness from a spark of Krishna's splendor. So when we understand this, we will understand that there's no point in becoming attracted to anything other than Krishna. We just need to become attracted to Krishna directly, and that will grant us all the fulfillment that we might get by getting attracted to other things. And attraction to Krishna will give us far greater fulfillment than whatever might be available by becoming attracted to other things. So the world offers us many vikalpas to Krishna, many alternatives to Krishna for fixing our mind on, for getting attracted to. But when we understand Krishna's glory is, then we will put aside his for all those vikalpas. And so avikalpena yogena yujyate. Therefore, without considering any alternatives, we will yogena yujye. We will engage in the practice of yoga. Natra samshayah. Of this there is no doubt. Now, Krishna, as earlier told, that Natra samshaya, that kind of words he has used earlier. For example, when he's talking about Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samshayah. There it is yati nasti atra samshayah. And here it is yujyate natra samshayah. So some difference, but overall the import is the same, that there is no doubt. So here, what does this mean? Krishna said earlier in 9.34 मन्मना भव मद्भक्तो मद्याजी मां नमस्कुरु मामे वैश्यसि त्वैवम् आत्मानां मत्परायणः. Those who fix their consciousness on him, they will come to him, he has said. Now the question may come up, how do we fix our consciousness on him? How do we do manmana bhav mad bhakto? Well, for that, we need to understand his glories. And those glories are being talked about in this chapter. And Krishna says, those who understand my glories thus, then yujyate natra samshayah. And their consciousness will become fixed on him and him alone without being distracted to anything else. That is the sweetness, that is the sublime result of knowing Krishna's glories. So that means there's a chain of promises happening. Krishna says if we think about him, we will attain him. That he promises. If we think about him lifelong, we will think about him at the time of death. If we think about him at the time of death, we will attain him. Of this there is no doubt. And that he has, all this he has said earlier in 9.34 and in 10.6 and 7. Now, sorry, not 10, 8.6 and 7. Now in 10th chapter he's saying, okay, if you have the question, how you will be able to fix the consciousness on me? Understand my glories. And then glorification of Krishna or appreciation of the glories of Krishna, it removes from our mental horizon, from our mental radar, mental scope, the consideration of substitutes for Krishna or alternatives to Krishna. Avikalpena yogena yujyate. So Krishna says, undistractedly you become fixed on me. Of this there is no doubt. That means by knowing Krishna's glories, we will surely become fixed in devotion to him. No doubt about it. So what we need to do is, just as Arjuna will in the future ask questions in this chapter itself, to appreciate Krishna's glories further. Similarly, we too can be inquisitive to hear Krishna's glories, and by hearing those glories, we can move onwards towards him at a steady pace till we eventually attain life of everlasting sweetness with him. Thank you.